These seedlings that I've planted have been going, oh geez, I wish I could remember, maybe 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. I planted them in these 4 cells. Let's see if I can show you. And the growing medium that I chose was a very fine medium. You don't want to get a potting soil that has big chunks of bark. It's just a lot easier for the seedlings to emerge out of some fine, good quality potting soil. Watering, I use this spray mister right here. I just pump it up and spray them when it gets dry, when you feel the soil or the dirt, the potting soil getting dry. As far as fertilizing, you got to be really careful about fertilizing seedlings. If you can get away with it, don't fertilize them at all for a while until they're fairly large, an inch or so above the surface. I used a little bit of this. This is the first time I've used it. It's really mild. It only has 0.15% nitrogen and 0.85 phosphorus and 0.55 potassium. So it is very mild, and I just put 1 capful in per quart, and it seemed to work very well. Another thing that I've used is, as you notice, this heating mat. In years past, I couldn't get my peppers to germinate, and it's because I couldn't get the temperature of the potting soil that they were in up to the necessary temperature. From what I can tell, they need the soil temperature that they need to germinate is around 70 to 72 degrees, and I could never get that high. And so I bought this heating mat, and within a couple of days after planting, they germinated just perfectly. And the heating mat got the potting soil temperature up to around 80, and sometimes even hotter. To cool it down, I just put spacers underneath the container here. And also I had a top that went on top of this, and it did a little greenhouse effect. And it's just a clear plastic thing, and you can get it at any nursery. And it just, then once they started germinating, I just took the top off, and now you can see them. So I really recommend a heating mat, unless you can put it on top of your fridge or whatever, to get it, especially for peppers, to get the potting soil hot enough. It is April 8th, and as you can see outside, I live in Utah, so it's snowing. So normally I would do this transplanting outside because potting soil can get rather messy, but because it's so cold outside, I'm doing it on my kitchen table. If I brought them outside, they may go into shock because it's cold outside. So what we have is, I've got a bunch of yogurt containers that I've drilled holes in the bottom, 2 holes for water drainage, and have filled each of the containers about 1/3 full of potting soil. And what I'm going to do is grab my leggy tomatoes. Now, if you don't have leggy tomatoes, if you have a better window than I do, or a greenhouse, you don't really need to do this, because your tomatoes will be stout and they won't be as leggy. When I say leggy, I mean, I'll show you. When I say leggy, I mean all this stem. Because of the lack of sun in my windowsill. They'll grow, but they just tend to be leggy. Okay, when you take them out of the cells, you want to check the roots. I'll come closer. The way you can tell that you have a healthy plant is if you have white roots, white feathery roots. And see how these are nice and white, and the root system's getting fairly elaborate. That means you have a healthy transplant. What I'm going to do is take the container, put this down into the new potting soil, in the center and just make it deep enough to where I'm going up to the primary leaves. These are the primary leaves. And I'll just snip those off, just pinch them off. I don't want them. And take your potting soil, dump some in. And be careful with the stem. It is a little bit fragile, so just center it. Push down the potting soil. I like to pack it down a little bit just because you water it's going to get packed down anyway. So fill it up to the top. And all that buried stem will have roots that come out of the stem, and for more water absorption and for better anchoring. And as you can see, I went up to about where the primary leaves were. I still left a couple inches above. When I plant it outside, I'll probably bury it another inch deep, and that's it. This is a German green tomato. I've got a rainbow tomato, a brandywine, and I have a black crim. I'm trying a Brazilian beauty this year. I've never had those, and I also like pineapple tomatoes. So again, if you have leggy tomatoes, you can bury them deep. That's what I would recommend, just so all the roots go out. And so that's how you start tomatoes from seed in your windowsill and planting them in different pots.